The world we live in faces large challenges, challenges that are existential for humanity in need of solutions. In order to develop these solutions, we need radical interdependence, entrepreneurship, leadership, and passion. Bringing leaders together in an action-oriented community is essential. B for Good Leaders is building a global cooperative community in which entrepreneurship works together. Every month, we design a leadership dialogue in which you can learn and interact with influential leaders. Welcome to this month's edition of the B for Good Dialogue.
Good afternoon and welcome to the first Leaders Dialogue. My name is Leen Zevenbergen and I'm co-founder of B for Good Leaders. My Leaders Dialogue's companions are on my right-hand side, the co-founder of B Corp Europe, Marcello Palazzi, and on the left-hand side, Francine Lemos, who is a board member of B Lab Global and also was a leader of Sistema B Brazil. And today we host our event from this beautiful studio of our partner iTeam Global in Eindhoven, which is a city in the Netherlands. And in the coming half hour or 1.5 hours, we will discuss two main topics. One is, what is a B Corp? And the second topic is, how do we build or how can we build a regenerative economy? These two topics are also two of the main topics of the summit that we had in Rome and the summit that we will have next year in Amsterdam. We're delighted to have four great guests in the show today. Bart Houlihan, co-founder of B Lab, honored to have you here. Laurence de Broe, who is the former CFO of Heineken, and she has several important board seats. Isabelle Grosmetre, who is the founder and CEO of Goodness & Co. And Bert van Son, founder and CEO of Mud Jeans, who hosted the Queen today in their company. But we're also delighted to have all of you as our leaders in the audience. And we would very much like to invite you to get involved in the discussion, ask questions, make remarks as much as you can. We have Daniel in the background and later on in the foreground, and he will bring all those questions to us at this table.
Yes, so it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. What is the dialogue all about? We are here together, a massive amount of leaders that knows that we need to change, and all the challenges that we are facing in the world right now, it can be changed if we are together in radical interdependence. So this is just the beginning of a long journey that we're going to start until the summit that we have in May next in Amsterdam. Hope you all can join us there. And we are here to not only talk, but to get to know each other, to be inspired for our dear guests, and also start to think and act mainly, how can we change the systems? So glad to be here with all of you.
Thank you. So our intriguing first topic is what it means to be a B Corp. And now you think I will go to Bart, but I will wait a little bit before we go to Bart Houlihan, who's one of the founders of B Lab. Why does this phenomenon exist? Why was it created? And before we go to Bart, we have two people at this table here, Marcello and Francine, and I would like to ask their opinion. Marcello, you co-founded B Lab Europe. So why did you do that? And why do you think the B Lab, the B Corps are so important?
So thank you very much, Leen. Wonderful to be here. For me, the B Corp community is like the apex of a movement that has been, around the world for the last 20 years, moving away from a neoliberal capitalism, much more towards inclusive and sustainable capitalism. And now we have 6,000 B Corps, 20,000 nearly benefit corporations. And the mission that we have here at B for Good Leaders is to help many other companies around the world be inspired and learn and work with the B Corps. So for me, it is a very historic moment in time when we see that our architecture with politics, with civil society, isn't working as effectively as it could be. And I think this is the world of the impact entrepreneurs. And I think we are trying to bring them all together, where all of you leaders that are here with us, creating this community around the beautiful example of B Corps. So that is, for me, the real power that we have at our hands to change the system.
And you say the system, and that brings me to Francine, because Francine, you were leader of Sistema Bay. Why is it called Sistema Bay and not B-Lab?
Yeah, if Sistema Bay is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, and if we go back to that 10 years ago, we do need at that time to drive change. We still need, of course, but to drive the demand and create a whole way of thinking and bringing together people, academics, different people, and of course having the B Corp and the business leaders in the center of the whole model, but creating the demand and for a systemic change. So that's why it's Sistema Bay. Since the beginning, Sistema Bay has this systemic view.
The system.
System.
It is a system. And is that the same in Europe, Marcello? It's a system.
It is a system. In Europe, we decided 9 years ago when we started to build up Europe that the NGOs, civil society, cities were already quite well organized, but we have created a lot of partnerships with cities, for example. This year's Barcelona, Edinburgh, Lisbon, Paris, Geneva have been involved in the past. We have provinces. We have the whole country of Scotland. Scotland can be. So it's not formalized inside Build Europe, but it is actually at the informal level, we have a lot of these partnerships. And this is also what we want to do with Be for Good Leaders. Really important, the impact investors, the city officials, and of course, governments. Increasingly, the legislation is a very important piece of our movement.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So every leaders dialogue, as we have said several times now already, has two central themes. So we would like to take a look at the first theme. What is a B Corp and how will it help us? And research has shown that the world needs a strong systemic change, a change in the system. And I think that Bart and his companions have worked on that change, but Bart will come later. Let's take a quick look at a video about the B Corps.
Since we started Kirk, we've always wanted to run a different kind of business, but it wasn't until we came across the B Corporation movement that we found a framework through which we could actually express and structure the kind of company we wanted to be.
B-Lab's a nonprofit with a very simple mission. We're serving the world's leading entrepreneurs using business as a force for good.
This community signed a declaration of interdependence and invited others to join them. Now thousands of companies are turning our community into a global movement to redefine success in business. B corporations use the power of business to solve social and environmental problems.
There are cultural norms and legal impediments that get in the way of entrepreneurs who want to scale profits and purpose.
To become a B Corporation, businesses meet higher sets of social and environmental standards. For Cook, this meant introducing a profit share scheme for staff, focusing on how we use our energy and water, expanding our community engagement policies, and working to employ disadvantaged people across the country.
We will either regress to the way that business has been done over the last 50 years, creating value for a very few while externalizing costs to the many. Or we can surge forward to a sustainable future where business is creating a shared and durable prosperity for all. We sit at that tipping point. And honestly, it's up to us.
I'm so glad to be here with my dear friend, Bart Houlihan. Welcome, Bart. Bart, along with Jay Cohen and Andrew Cassoy, founded B-Lab in 2006. Bart, prior to that, Bart was an investment banker and also CEO and founder of And One, a very successful company, basketball footwear company in the US. And I would like to start with that, Bart. So welcome. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Tell us why you decided to let And One behind and start a new kind of company and that ended up being a movement, B Corp movement. Can you tell that story?
But first, thank you for having me, Fran. It's great to see you and my old friends, Lane and Marcello. It's an honor to be with you all today, and I'm excited to spend a little time talking about the movement, the broader movement to use business as a force for good. And Fran, you were asking about how And One inspired B-Lab. The story is one that I think will be familiar to many who are listening. And One, for those of you who don't know it, was a basketball footwear and apparel company that began very small, and we grew it to be the second largest basketball apparel and footwear company in the world behind Nike. And believe it or not, we were a socially responsible business, not because our consumers cared, they didn't. We were selling basketball shoes to 18-year-old kids. But it was just the type of company that we wanted to build. And what we learned was that it's really easy to be socially responsible when there's 7 of you, 8 of you, and it gets more challenging as you scale, as you bring in outside investors, as you expand your management team. The effort to continue to have purpose and profit, both centered in the business, was increasingly difficult as we grew larger. And then, Fran, at the moment that it mattered most, the moment where our legacy was at risk, when we decided to sell the company, what we learned was we couldn't even talk about purpose, that our fiscal responsibility, our fiduciary duty, was to maximize the return to our shareholders. And so when we sold the company, though I bear no ill will to the gentleman who bought it, he, within 6 months, eliminated all of our charitable giving practices. He fired all 300 plus employees. He eliminated our ethical supply chain. He decimated the values of the business, all within 6 months. And at the back end of that, Fran, it felt like there had to be a better way, right? There had to be a way that a company could scale, bring in outside capital, and even have a liquidity event and hold on to its mission. That's what was the original spark for the idea behind B-Lab. And pretty quickly, what started as this pretty focused idea, Fran, of building an alternative structure to help companies that want to hold on to purpose, we realized we were wildly ignorant that there were hundreds of thousands of companies that were already triple bottom line, purpose-driven businesses, and that perhaps we could have a broader aspiration. And it is at that juncture that we came to what you and Marcello were talking about, that what we really want to do is change the system, move the economic system from one that has been built on a focus on shareholders to one that's all about the stakeholder, that's more inclusive and more equitable and regenerative.
That's amazing. And we can say that the movement grew a lot since you founded it. Yeah, we have now, like 5,000, more than 5,000 B Corps everywhere in a lot of countries. And we can say that now the movement is more a teenager than a baby, if I can say that.
That's fair. I think that's a good metaphor.
Yeah, and maybe we are living now the pain of growing, if I can say that. And it's natural that in the beginning, we have the pioneers, the small B Corps that, of course, was just came up to the world to change the world. But now, and I remember many years ago, we discussing on the strategic part, we need to reach the mainstream, and we got there, right? And now we have big companies. I remember I was working at Natura when Natura got the certification. It was the first traded company that did that. And then now we have Danone, Nespresso, and a lot of big corporations coming, and with a lot of some criticism as well. How are you seeing it? Do you think it's normal? What are the role, if they have any, in the movement, the multinational companies? Yeah.
So first and foremost, I understand and appreciate the criticism. You are right, Fran. We actually now have more than 6,000 certified B corporations in 80 countries, 150 different industries. And unequivocally, this movement has been grown with small and medium enterprises, companies that are at the forefront of really using business as a force for good. They are the foundation of this movement, and their work has built the demand where we now have real interest from multinationals. In fact, they've inspired, Fran, now that more than 250,000 companies to use our impact assessment to manage and measure and improve their own impact. And so these small, medium businesses are the bedrock, the foundation of the movement, and have brought in the multinationals, which from my perspective is hugely important, because let's get back to what the purpose is, right? The certification is a means to an end. We frankly have enough certifications in the world. This certification is trying to build a broader movement to change the economic system. And if we're really talking about economic systems change, where we're changing both behavior and culture and the institutions that support the current system, you need to demonstrate that this can work at scale. It doesn't mean that we're going to have hundreds of multinationals that are certified as B corporations, but we have to have the right multinationals join this movement to demonstrate that indeed this idea of business as a force for good can work in every industry, in every geography, and importantly, at every size. So it is critical right now that we find the right partners, that we scale with integrity. And then also, Fran, we have to find ways to welcome those multinationals that want to be part of the broader movement that you all were referring to at the beginning. We have a new product called B Movement Builders, which is a way that a company can start to engage that's a multinational in this broader movement, and other tools that companies can use. But it's critical, again, if we're really talking about economic systems change, we're going to need to get the most influential, largest companies on this planet focused on the same values and same objectives that we all share.
Yeah, and you were talking about the right companies, and I do believe that behind every company there is a leader, and we are here with a lot of leaders that we expect that we will act and do things together, of course. But if you could say something, what would B-Lab expect from the leaders and from the B Corps on this systemic change that we need to do?
So beginning with, I'm not so arrogant to believe that they're all going to be certified B corporations. Like, we all have to have the humility of where we fit in this broader ecosystem, and it is indeed an ecosystem. It is a broader movement, but we do need action. Fran, what I would start with is that I think the time for principles and declarations and, beautiful statements that we all sign our name to, that has to be behind us. We have to move from those shared value statements to actually taking action towards this more sustainable future. And what that means to me is get engaged. We have an impact assessment that's totally free and available for anybody to use. It's confidential. It's a do-it-yourself consulting tool that allow you to understand where you sit. You can benchmark yourself against all of the other companies in the community of certified B corporations and the other 250,000 companies that have used that tool. Ask your supply chain to use it. Get your suppliers engaged in trying to use their business as a force for good. You have to do that authentically. You have to be on that journey yourself, admit not only where you're excelling, but areas for improvement. But once you've done that, get the rest of your broader community engaged, whether it be your supply chain or even your customers. We've seen major multinationals ask companies in their supply chain to use the B Impact Assessment just as a vehicle for their own improvement. We have a product called B Analytics that allows that multinational to see how their suppliers are doing. And on the other end of the scale, Fran, we've had banks ask people who are receiving their loans use the tool. They've asked them to use the tool to understand where they are on the journey, and if they improve, they've even reduced the interest rate to those companies. And so create clear incentives, engage your broader community, because to be really honest, where we're at right now is I'm a believer in government. I'm a believer in civil society. They are absolutely necessary, but wildly insufficient to deal with the enormity of the challenges in front of us. We are going to have to get the global business community more engaged in solving these challenges, whether it be wealth inequality or the global climate crisis. And so now is the time to move from values and principles to tangible action and plans to move us towards a better future.
Yeah, amazing. Before I include Lynn and Marcello, I would like to remind every leader, we want to make it very interactive. So if you have a question to Bart, please just put it on the chat. We will be able to see it here, okay? Marcello?
Wonderful, but some people don't know that at the beginning of B Lab, we also had a reach out to investors with B Analytics, and nowadays that ESG has become such an important issue. And we have seen examples, I think it's Texas or Florida, being quite negative about ESG investment. How do you connect this investment world, ESG, to the movement of business as a force for good?
I think it's a natural evolution, Marcello. You're absolutely right that at the end of the day, this only works if we bring the capital markets along with us, that capital is the lifeblood for all businesses, and we're going to need to bring financial institutions into this broader movement. And what's interesting, Marcello, is I think there's criticism on both sides right now. On one side is frustration that being part of an ESG investment vehicle is no longer meaningful. I think I recently read that more than 90% of US equities that are traded are part of some ESG fund. If we're all honest with ourselves, that is a clear indication that we've lost our way about what ESG means. There's no way that 90% of US equities should be part of a true ESG mutual fund. And so that is a fair criticism where we're going to have to become more precise, use real metrics, and understand what we mean when we talk about ESG investment. And on the other side, you're also right, Marcello, there is a growing chorus of a blowback around woke capitalism, the idea that this in some way is the providence of a liberal movement. And I think that is frankly, to some degree, political opportunism. And if you talk to business leaders, independent of whether they're on the right or the left, and they're mature, thoughtful business leaders, they know sustainability is not some tree-hugging, Birkenstock-wearing movement. It is an existential threat to their business, and it has to be core to their intentionality and business strategy moving forward. And so I am hopeful that one of the things that this broader community can do is actually come together to say this isn't woke, it's just better business. This is a better way to run a company. It makes companies more resilient, more profitable over the long term. They attract and retain better talent. They have more access to capital. They build stronger relationships with their customers. And so on both ends of the spectrum, Marcello, it's a natural evolution of a rapidly growing movement, broader movement to use business as a force for good, but we're going to have to be aware of one, making sure that this is meaningful on one side, and on the other, come together as a broader community to push back on that this is just a better way to run a company.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I see we have two questions here. I'm going to pass to Lisa Barlow. She's on the screen right now. Lisa, can you make her question, please?
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. Hi, Bart. Just a quick question to know how you define the barriers for leaders from acting. What's stopping them?
You bring the other one.
I think there's a variety of barriers, Lisa. By the way, good to see you. I think one of which, frankly, is 50 years of history that has built cultural norms and expectations about what business leaders are supposed to do. We are coming out of, going back literally to the Milton Friedman essay a belief that the social responsibility of business was to make money. And that ethos has penetrated institutions, Lisa, in a way that is really difficult to disrupt, if we're honest about it. We have a financial industry where the entire infrastructure and incentive system is built around the maximization of just shareholder value rather than stakeholder value. So there are both cultural challenges as well as real structural challenges built into the institutions that are reinforcing this idea that business exists exclusively to create the most profits for a small group of shareholders. And so this transition has to both overcome those cultural norms and fundamentally change those institutions where we are now seeing a different incentive structure to build a different economy.
Great. And we have another question from Paco Bristeno. Paco?
Yes, thank you. And well, first, congratulations for Be For Good Leaders and for sure for B Lab and the B Corp movement. And I think that's fantastic. I love it. I'm part of that. I'm a B leader and well, trying to help and to keep moving forward. But I think that I love the standards, I love the certification, but I think that this can grow in a linear way. And we need an exponential growth. How can we help the movement to accelerate this? Is this policy changing? Is it education? Is it how to accelerate? Because I think that we are late in the transformation needed. Thank you.
I totally agree. Thank you for the question, Paco. And I totally agree with your beginning statement that the certification is linear growth. It is not intended to be the scaling vehicle. It is a means to an end to build a broader movement. And that broader movement requires a few things that you've already talked about. Number one, we need to embed this in our educational systems. So we have something called Academia Bay that has literally over 500 educators across the globe that are trying to embed this in business school and undergraduate and frankly law school teachings so that it is clear that there's a different way to approach business. Another way to scale is about standards. You know, the standards have to go beyond the certification. And Paco, what's incumbent upon B Lab and our standards is to make sure that we are working with the other beautiful standards that are being developed right now, whether it be ISSB or our friends at the EU or what's happening at the SEC, so that there's harmonization. Because otherwise, our standards are different, right? There are performance standards. They're telling you what to do rather than how to report. But if we're asking different things, Paco, it's unscalable, right? You end up with companies being torn between, well, I got to report over here with one set of metrics and I got to use an entirely different set of metrics to use my B impact assessment to manage and improve. And so it's about standards that are harmonized, that are able, therefore, to scale. And then third and finally, it's about collaboration that I think our first, collectively, including my friends in this leadership community, we need to now find a much broader set of collaborators to go from something that has a strong foundation and real credibility to exponential impact and reach through partnerships. And I would be really honest with you, Paco, and say that this space is not, including B Lab, has not been great about collaboration. And so it is time to set that aside, find those fellow journeymen on economic systems change, and figure out how to bring a broader coalition together around a bigger movement.
I like to jump in, Paco, and just add, just to give you an example, yesterday I was at an event, I was speaking at an event, Prime Global, which is an association of 200,000 accountants. About half the people in the room knew what B Corp was, and all the others wanted to go to their clients and say, hey, this is something that you can look at, the model of B Corp. So this is one way of scaling, is to say, how can we inspire and share all the work that the B Corps have done over the years with many more companies? I mean, Bart and some of us were involved in a partnership with the UN Global Compact around the Sustainable Development Goals. That's reached out to 18,000 companies. GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, also have a partnership with B-Lab. So, and also what we are doing here with Be for Good Leaders is to amplify the voice of B Corps. And because of course we love B Corps, we see how much work has been going on in the last 16 years, but we want more people to get to know it. And so that's part of our mission in the world, to amplify and scale and help to scale this actually amazing movement. I think is one of the best in the world.
So thank you, Marcello. Before we go to our next part, I see one final question that came from Camilla. And since we cannot get her voice in the system, I will pose her question to you, Bart. Camilla is asking, what exactly would you expect from the bigger companies?
So it comes back to the question from Fran, and I'd reiterate where I started. Lane, I think that where we're at right now with our fellow partners on this broader movement, larger companies, is ultimately we need to move from all of those beautiful declarations that I see across many different platforms to real action. And that means changing behavior, both inside the own organization, as well as across your value chain, down through all of your suppliers and back out to all of your customers. I'd also, the only thing we haven't really mentioned in this is that there's a huge component around advocacy that I don't want to leave without mentioning, that ultimately, if we're really talking about a transition from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism, Lane, we're going to need different rules. Like if the rule of the game is to maximize shareholder value, it's going to be an awfully long road. And what that's about is changing laws, advocacy for stakeholder governance. And there's a variety of ways to do stakeholder governance, whether it be the benefit core structure or frankly, entreprise à mission in France, the SAMs, and right? So there's different ways to accomplish the same objective. But if we really want to see this transition, there will be no stakeholder capitalism without stakeholder governance. And that is another way that we could ask our friends with their voice and their advocacy to help us move political leaders towards that type of legislation.
So thank you. Thank you, all the leaders that put their questions. We need to keep on the discussions here. We have other things to discuss. Bart, I would like to thank you so much to be here with us. It was an honor to have you in the first dialogue series, really. So glad you could make it before Thanksgiving. I know it's big in the US, so thank you so much for that.
It's my pleasure, Fran. Thank you very much. And thanks to everybody on the line. I appreciate the questions and I look forward to hopefully working with you. There's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bart.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you, Bart.
Very good.
Thanks, Lane.
Nice to have you here. We learn from all of you leaders that you want to be interactive, you want to be in touch with each other, you want to know who are the others. And that is actually also one of the goals of Be for Good Leaders, that we become action driven. So what we have thought of is that we bring you now together in a little triad. That means 3 people who meet each other, small breakouts. And Daniel, our chief storytelling, as I always call him, will explain what this means and how this is going to work. Daniel.
Absolutely. I think we are so challenged by all that we have to do, and at the same time so blessed by the people that are surrounding us. So let's get to know each other. Very simple. The simple, good old breakouts, but with 2 really interesting questions. And I would love you to just, by all means, voice your opinions on these 2 questions, but at the same time, listen very carefully, because that's how we move and progress together. And the 2 questions are appearing now on the screen. The first one, not easy questions, but I think essential questions. One is, what is your vision for the future we want to be building? What excites you most? Yeah. So what is really something that you think should be a priority? And the second question is, there's something that you're really passionate about, a project you're taking forward in your company or around your company that you would like some help with, no? Something that there's some obstacles that you're facing right now. So two simple but very useful questions with which to start a conversation and start to get to know at least a couple of the leaders that are surrounding you. It's going to be a short 15 minutes or so, and we look forward to a meaningful conversation. I will now create the rooms, and you're very glad to go and meet each other and go forward. Looking forward to hearing of the outcomes. Christoph, I'm not sure if you can join one of the rooms, or you're probably busy on something else, but if you want, there's a view for roommates waiting for you.
Hi, Danielle.
Meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back, welcome back. And this was just a taster of this great group of leaders that are surrounding you. I hope it was a nice taster. We aim to create a lot more of these opportunities for interaction. And one other very important point that we are really keen to share what you're excited about. So do not hesitate to write to me so that we can keep posting on the media these great projects you're taking forward. Thank you very much. And I hand over back to the studio.
Thank you, Daniel. Well done. And thank you all of the leaders who are in this dialogue. It's important that you join the dialogue with each other, but also that you join the dialogue with us here in the studio. So again, I would like to ask your questions and comments when we go to the second sub-theme of today. The second sub-theme is a little bit more radical than sustainability, and it is regenerative. Regenerative is not only a more modern word for sustainability, but also a step further, the step more important for the planet, for the human race. It is also main theme at the summit. What does regenerative mean? How can our system become more regenerative? But before we discuss this topic, we first take a look at a short video.
So here we are, flying into the sunset of mass consumerism, over half a century on, with economies that have come to expect, demand, and depend upon unending growth, because we're financially, politically, and socially addicted to it.
Human beings are living systems, and the human economy, therefore, is a living system.
So this double-sided challenge to meet the needs of all within the means of the planet, it invites a new shape of progress. No longer this ever-rising line of growth, but a sweet spot for humanity.
We actually discover that many of these unquestioned truths that are at the basis of our finance ideology are actually out of alignment with how living systems that sustain themselves in the real world actually work.
We urgently need financial, political, and social innovations that enable us to overcome this structural dependency on growth, so that we can instead focus on thriving in balance.
We need to transition to a new source of prosperity, and why not transition to the ultimate source of prosperity, which is the magic of life on this planet.
Thank you very much. John Fullerton and Kate Rowett were on the video. Thank both of you. Laurence de Brou is our next speaker. Yesterday afternoon, I was with Laurence, and she has a board meeting that may run late. So we recorded this interview with her, which we're going to show you now. Thank you.
How do you see this balance between including these larger multinationals into this movement, making sure that we are really serious about the intentions, we avoid greenwashing? It's a very delicate balance. How would you address this question?
Basically, we have no choice. If we want to have the impact that we should be having, we need to include larger company. We need to make these beautiful ideas and powerful ideas mainstream, because it is only then that we will be able to give the scope and the power and the extent to the movements that it deserves and that it should be having if we want to be useful. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. So I think this is the way to go. Now, how to go about it? Of course, it always has its dangers and we should be vigilant. I guess it is about commitment to a journey. And when you are in a board of directors and audit committees, there is a word you hear very much, which is tone at the top. And I think it's very important to engage with companies when the tone at the top is really supportive. You can start with a coalition of the willing and people in different departments, sustainability departments, starting to talk to us and engage and come to conferences. At some point, when you bring a large company in, you need to make sure that the CEO, but also the board is committed. and committed to talk about it externally, and not to talk about it as talking about a medal. Well, I'm a wonderful person, we're a wonderful company because we're part of this club, but as talking about a journey and admitting that none of us is perfect, but what we want is to be on that journey, and we recognize that we have this radical interdependence, which we talked about in Rome, and that this is about leaders, about people inspiring people, and people challenging constructively and supporting each other. If you have this commitment and tone at the top, and also this willingness and humility to say, we're not perfect, and we won't be perfect tomorrow, and the problem is extremely complicated, but we are going to build collective intelligence, and we're better off together than alone, then I think that the risks are limited.
Family business and foundations generally can think more long-term. You have been and you are involved with companies that used to be family business, perhaps they became, quoted on the stock exchange. They are a bit of a hybrid. How do you see this question of ownership relating to the engagement of multinationals on this transformation?
So first of all, I've always found, and this is why at some point I actually really made my choice to work in such companies, that the company that is listed on a stock exchange and at the same time is family controlled or foundation controlled is a bit the best of all worlds. It does get the challenge, the benchmark, from the external world, and at the same time, it does have the support of a shareholder, and it does have the way to discuss a strategy with either a human being or a foundation. But I've always struggled a bit with the financial market wants. I mean, I don't know what the financial market is. It's not a person. I think it could be an excuse. It could also be huge pressure for leaders. So I love these settings where you have someone to talk to, and you can agree or disagree. You can fight pretty hard even sometimes, but you have someone to talk to, and you can talk about legacy, about transmission, about history, and have a real dialogue. And dialogues happen between people. It doesn't happen with the system or the market. So so I do feel that a family or foundation controlled company can really lead the path and can really show the way. And if you look at a number of our countries, there are actually pretty large companies that still retain a good dose of family, if not control in the consolidation sense of the term, of real serious influence. So there are quite a lot of beautiful companies out there where you can find the person, the shareholder that is going to be able to actually tell the leader, well, I'm giving you a bit of a safe harbor. Not a safe harbor not to be good, not to be profitable, but a safe harbor to actually manage this tension between profitability, sustainability, people, planet, profit. Because I'm convinced that you do not have to sacrifice any of the three, people, planet, profit, but you cannot maximize all of the three together.
What about the composition of these boards? Questions of gender, of young people, how do you see that?
So it's a matter of composition, and definitely in the past decade, the composition of the board has become much more intentional in terms of balance. We're not there yet, but in terms of gender balance, origin, trying to reflect where the company actually has its activities, at least in the boards of the large companies where I worked and where I'm part of the board now, I can see that it's very intentional and it's very carefully crafted. That's important. What I feel might be even more important is how you build from this group of people. Usually they can assume that they're smart enough because they've done something professionally before they got on that board. But how do you actually transform this individual intelligence into collective intelligence? A board comes together, 6, 8 times a year? So if there is not really a willingness to build this collective intelligence, it just doesn't happen. And I would say it's a lot on the shoulders of the chair of the board, but every board member has a responsibility. And that is what I take back from these events. Marcello, at the end of each event, I come and I hug you and I say, thank you so much. And it's changed my life. Every time it brings me this energy and say, okay, you know what? Everything I've learned and all these wonderful discussions and all this super inspirational presentation, I am not just going back home happy about myself. I'm going back to every single board that I belong to and really trying to share and to give what I've received in those events. So what I do hope is that that's what we're all doing, and I'm sure we're all doing that, It is really forming this group of people, and when we are together, what we do is we create this energy together, then after that goes and benefits the larger world that we all belong to.
Laurence, somehow we didn't even introduce, the video was cut a little short. So Laurence Debreu is on the board of Exor, which is a large industrial group, Solvay, another large industrial, and Novo Nordisk, altogether 300 or 400 billion euros in value. So, and she's a very, I've always found her to be so straight and honest and ethical. So it's wonderful, Laurence, that you've been with us and you are with us. You also join as a steward and you will come and be with us in Amsterdam. So thanks again, Laurence. I'm going to invite Isabelle Grosmaître from Paris. I think I see you there. And Isabelle, I've met Isabelle when she was high up in Danone 4, 5, 6 years ago, working with the CEO, with Emmanuel Faber. And Isabelle was also representing Danone at the Consumer Goods Forum, which is one of the largest association of retail and food and companies from IKEA to Unilever, Procter & Gamble. And so it's really important and valuable for us to hear. First, I have a question that I'll ask, but before the question, Isabelle, how do you see this journey that we've been discussing today, moving towards the mainstream, involving the bigger companies? Share with us your experience and your wisdom, please.
Thank you so much, Marcello, and hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Why? Because I believe that it may feel scary, but that together we have no other choice also than to build a regenerative economy, an economy where people and planet thrive. And to tell you the truth, of course, I'm an optimistic, but in moments, exactly as Laurence just shared, in moments like the one we lived in Rome this year, and when we meet leaders that really believe that there is no other choice and they are willing to act, I do have so much hope. And this is my message tonight, is that I believe it is possible. And also I believe that there are many people connected today that have done amazing things. So I think it's more a matter of scaling and making sure that we make this movement go mainstream. This is what matters to me. And the good news is that I believe that the world is ready, not just us. Why? Because I believe we are at a tipping point, a point where actually businesses, of course, will play a critical role in solving the world's biggest challenges, as Bart said before. But I believe also that business today needs to demonstrate their contribution to society. And in fact, I believe today that businesses, only the one with a positive impact will thrive. Why? Because they will be chosen. And this is becoming mainstream. So chosen by people, by individuals, whether you are an employee, a consumer, a partner, investor is a little different game, but I believe it's all about people. And I think that time is now. So the question is not anymore about should we do it? Yes, no, a little, maybe. But it's more about how do we make it happen and how do we make it happen mainstream? And I believe today, the isolated pioneers, we just named a few, but now I think that they are less isolated. And this movement is also a way to come together and to show that it is possible. So the question more is about the how to make it happen today.
Isabelle, thank you. I have a question from Erwin Schweller about how do we design and sustain these institutions and the culture that then will lead to a shared prosperity in a way that is ethical and effective. So it's really about, and I think this is also your experience.
That is Erwin.
Oh, Erwin, you're there. Erwin, I was reading part of your question. Do you want to add anything to Isabelle?
The second part of the question is also relevant. I think we're thinking into broad sets of ideas, which then get clad into power, and they become ideologies. South Africa as an example. Here, for example, you know, when we talk about business contributions, business was part of the corrupt system that was created in the name of a constitutional democracy. So I think there's a serious need to also address not only the instrumental matters, but the deeply philosophical matters, and to engage with those questions, to design and deliver new knowledge institutions which are capable of dealing with these things. So these are profound systemic questions linked to very practical consequences. And I think we should engage with those deeper questions. Final point, in South Africa, we started out thinking post-democracy that we had the answers. It now turns out that we didn't have the answers. We may now have better questions, and maybe that's a better place to be than thinking you've got all of the answers.
This is so true. This is so true. I think that we need to very much in this journey be at the same time very ambitious, because we need at least the pioneers in business as a force for good needs to have the courage to shoot for the moon. That's my conviction, even though we don't exactly know how to get it right, because no one has everything, you know, everything aligned and in order. But I think there are elements that I would like to share. So first, I could not agree less than the point you're raising. I believe it's about a transformative culture in the way we do things. And maybe there are 4 dimensions that I would like to share with you. And sometimes it's just basics, but I think that, for instance, one is about having the purpose of the company as a compass. And as you hear, and I'm from Paris, but in France, for instance, the bigger multinationals, 75% have a purpose today, but only 20% have them in the bylaws. I'm not saying that the bylaws is the magic bullet to all, but I'm saying that how many use really the purpose as a compass of decision for their business review, for their brand review, for the investment committee, for the way they incentivize people. That's the first thing that I would like to share. The second thing that I'm trying to work on really hard is mobilizing finance as a catalyst, because I believe today the reality of the mainstream is that there is the performance and then there is the value for all. So how can we help really the finance team, the finance leaders rethink value creation? And this is not so easy. Of course, regulation is helping us, etc. But there is no one today that is really looking at it in the full way, and how financial teams at multinational level really looking at it. There are some like Mars or like Bell, smaller companies, but they are rare. Third dimension that I would like to share is that, and I won't elaborate because Laurent just talked about it, but I believe in the critical role of boards. The boards are accountable to make the business sustainable for better futures. And I think today the topic of regenerative economy is not there yet. It is not core. It is a side. So I will not elaborate, but this is a topic that is very dear to my heart, and I'm very happy that Laurence is also part of this community, because we can learn a lot from her. The fourth dimension, and I think that we're all here because of that, is that as Be for Good leaders, we are conscious. We are conscious that no one, not individuals, but not even the best company in the world, can really make the system shift. This cannot happen. So we need to really act together, to collaborate. And here, I think that the cooperation is becoming the new norm. I remember very well, 5 years ago, when I was co-chairing the Consumer Goods Forum, we created an ACT tank of 114 companies to encourage better consumption, but we were at the very beginning. Now we have fabulous work with Ellen MacArthur, for instance, on plastic. We have also in the Bee movement, we have the Bee Beauty Coalition working, together to share best practice, to go further together. I think this is really key. And the last one, I agree also with Bart, at one point, you have the courageous leaders, the ones that are daring to be at the forefront, but you need to help them. The government needs to change the rules of the game. They need to incentivize positive change. Of course, I believe in regulation in a coercive way, but I also believe that how can you empower the courageous leaders to go further? How can you encourage them to win? So this is my point really about the how.
So thank you, Isabel. I would like to pick up on this courageous leadership to quickly check if Bert van Son, who is a very courageous leader, is online, because Bert today received the Queen and we have planned him to be in discussion. So can we see if Bert is here?
I'm online. Can you hear me?
Bert, we can hear you, we cannot see you.
That's why you got there. So Bert, great to see you. I actually, picking up on what Isabel was saying and saying a couple of words introducing you, you have been a bit like an enfant terrible of the fashion industry with the leasing jeans instead of selling jeans. And your model and your example have become so great that you received the award. You were the winner of the Dutch award by King Willem I. And today you received the Queen. So obviously your model is inspiring many people. Can you share a little bit your perspective on how you, as a kind of disruptor, how can you help sometimes compete with the bigger companies to help them transform the economy?
I would turn that around. I think I need their help to make this bigger. Now we are in the fashion industry, and it's an incredible industry. It's so huge. Everybody likes to express himself or herself with what she's wearing or he's wearing. And it has become, we've seen fast fashion coming. And today I learned a new word, it's ultra fast fashion. And that makes me really very sick. So we have to counter that. And the only way by doing that is just propose other things to consumers. That's my task. And luckily, we are one of the only ones in the fashion industry. And I wish more people were going to copy us. That's why we are radical transparent. And that's why we're also very proud to be chosen by B Corp for Best for the World on Environment. And all those things, that's where B Corp comes in for me. It helps us with our sustainability report that we every year, well, you can't see it, extract, where we say everything we do, and that's very strange in the fashion industry. We want to be transparent. We want to show. We want to show that we still learn, that we want to improve. And yeah, what can I say? We need bigger companies to start copying us. Actually, normally, I think our company should not exist anymore. We are now 10 years. And bigger companies should do what we are doing. But we are still here. We are still fighting. We are still showing the way. But still not yet copied, which is a shame, I think.
Bert, thank you. I think I was kind of thinking of an idea that we should bring some of these bigger companies to you, and,
yes.
And maybe it's something that concrete we can do and be for good leaders to bring, 10, 20 fashion companies to see you.
Yes, well, there are some good things happening. The fashion company, the bigger ones, are stealing away our CSR managers and things like that, which is great. So that's happening now. They learn from us and they fly out and go to the bigger companies. So that's happening. That's
Fantastic.
good.
Thank you so much, Bert. Over to you, Lane.
I would like to hear, Bert, why you are a B Corp? You're a famous B Corp. What drove you to that? Why did you, at a certain point in time, step into this?
Okay, we started our company 10 years ago, and I think in 2013 we heard about B Corp. And actually we thought to ourselves, we are already a B Corp, but we didn't know that we were a B Corp. And finally there's something that shows that where we can express ourselves and where we can be audited, or it's not an audit, but where we can tell the whole world what we are doing and become part of this warm environment with like-minded people that think the way we think and share ideas and learn from each other. So in Holland, we have Dopper and Tony Chocoloni, and we all work together, we exchange ideas, we sit together every month. So that's one of the reasons. Yeah, I think that's the most important one. And also going through the whole audit of B Corp, of the whole assignment, you learn a lot by these questions. Many of the questions we were thinking, oh, that's good, we already do this and that. And other questions we had to say, well, we never thought of this. And we learned how to improve ourselves and become better the next time that we were audited or assigned. So that's also one of the things that's interesting, I think. And well, there are many more. One of the things I always tell to people is that by being a B Corp and by being a high scoring B Corp, we attract a lot of young, talented, highly motivated, very well educated young people that want to work for this company, put their effort. And what's better in these times to have a crew of young people that want to go along with this old bastard to try to change the fashion industry. So that's really good.
Yeah, thank you, Bert. And also, Isabel, we have a couple of minutes for questions from Marcello, from Francine, but also from the leaders that are listening to ask to you. So maybe
I actually have a question, because we've been discussing during this afternoon, morning maybe for some of you, regarding the big corporations and their role. And Bert, I would love to listen to you. And as a B Corp leader at Sistema B, what you just mentioned, I heard that a lot. The B Corp movement just fits like a glove for the smaller companies, because you just realize that you found your peers, things like that. But I would like to understand your point of view. What's the role of the smaller companies in changing the systems? How do you see yourself to change the economic system the way things are right now?
I think we have a great example. I think that we just started 10 years ago by taking back old jeans and recycle them and use the raw material into the new jeans, which is quite exceptional. So we call ourselves, and we are still, the first and only circular denim brand in the world. Now, by showing that we are still here 10 years later, doing this and growing, I would like to show the bigger ones to say, hey guys, we're doing it, it works. Start yourself also. So I think that the world also needs small example companies to start doing things that might sound very difficult. We can still make mistakes because we're on this small level and for smaller volumes. So I can understand when you have this huge company, you want to change something, it may be very hard to go another way. But by the advantage of being a smaller company and a startup and now a scale-up is that you can take some risks and try other things and take new techniques on. For instance, in our business, if you talk about indigo, you know, the blue dye stuff, it's a very toxic dye stuff. There's now an alternative for that. There's a biodegradable dye. So we, from one day to the other, we start using that. And we can do that. And we can show that we still deliver high quality, very durable jeans. So I think that's some of the reason that smaller companies can lead the way.
I would like to go back to Isabel and connect what Isabel was saying, and also the way that Isabel, you and I, you remember with the Consumer Goods Forum, it was not so easy to bring in the small companies in the Consumer Goods Forum. There was a sort of, protectionism about, hey, here we are, the multinationals. And I remember pushing the CEO at the time. I said, no, come on, we have this movement of B Corps. Let's have them come in. But it was not so easy. So we need to do more of that because, and one thing is Danone, of course, started buying up smaller companies. Unilever has done the same, but other companies are a little bit too slow in changing and learning from the smaller companies. So as an action point for all of us is this kind of interaction between the disrupting companies like Mud Jeans and the big multinationals. So we need to work together, Isabel, to do that.
But a question to Isabel, Marcello, a question, Isabel, to you about this. What I was thinking of is you're at Danone. At a certain point in time, Danone decided, as a big company, multinational, to become a B Corp. Why? Why was that? Were they influenced by the small ones? Were they influenced by Emmanuel Faber, their leader? What happened?
I think the reality, so first of all, I think Danone's DNA is all about impact. It's not new. It's the only company of its size to have categories, 82% of its products that are recommended by local public health authorities. There had been, for more than 10 years, a lot of work on our ecosystems along the value chain. And of course, I think it's more about, was 6 years ago, was more Emmanuel looking at what would be the relevant framework for Danone to really, it's kind of what you just said, but it's, this is the vision. And we were looking at the different models, and B Corp was exactly what we had dream of, if I may. So I think this is how it came out, but because Emmanuel is a very visionary leader, so this is why. And I think going back to the points that you raised, Marcello, I think beyond global or big or small organization, it's all about leadership. So I don't think it's about big or small, actually. I think it's about having the front runners, enabling the front runners to really make it happen at the core and succeeding, and sharing that to the rest of the world, if I may. So it's more interaction, but it's not about big or small. It's about integrating that. Because of course, when you're small, a lot of times you're mission native, you're purpose native, as you just explained. Whereas the bigger ones, well, they are a lot of times not mission native or not regenerative native. So how do you transform the system? I think it's a different game. But we will learn so much from one another with the courageous leaders.
Well, that's very, I wanted to say, sorry, Elaine, thank you, Isabel, because in a way, Isabel is saying that actually what we are doing with Be for Good Leaders is connecting the leaders of these companies, irrespective of whether they should be small, large. And actually, if we saw Laurence sits on some of the largest boards in the world, and she's anyway one of us. She wants to change. So thank you very much, Isabel.
Yeah, and before we are going to wrap up the Leaders Dialogue, I still have a burning question, Bet, because today, as we said earlier, you received or hosted, whatever you did, the Queen. And were you a little bit nervous about that or not at all? And did she know, Bet, and did she know what a B Corp meant?
First of all, I was extremely nervous, and I'm used to give presentations, but I had to do one for her in front of my team. And I was even more nervous, but one of my slides, I tried to keep it short for her, but we were lucky because one of my colleagues was in Tunisia in our factory, and we could have an online report of that. Anyhow, one of my slides is always that I speak about B Corp and that we are very proud to be best for the world on environment. And one time we're actually the number one. And I didn't ask her if she knew B Corp, to be honest. I should have, sorry, I will. But she asked, she had been very well informed. She read a lot about us, and she did ask a lot of good questions, but most of the questions were about, it's a woman, 3 daughters. So she wants to know about the material and the yarns and the color and the washings and those kind of things. But okay, good enough. The product has to be excellent. If we want to change the world and jeans companies, we have to make an excellent pair of jeans, and she will wear them, which will help us also. But it was a very fun afternoon. Yeah, fantastic day. We all got very energized by that, and it will bring us.
Well, congratulations, congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
Thank you.
Francine.
Very inspiring. We are almost have almost come to the end, and it's very nice to finish with Isabella. I think this is really true what you said. We do need to focus on leadership, and we do need to focus on leaders. So that is what Be for Good Leaders is all about. So that's why I invite all of you to come to the next summit. It's going to be 11 and 12 of May next year in a very beautiful place. It's called Beurs van Berlage. I'm still struggling with the accent.
Yeah.
Hope you...
Berlage.
Yeah. We are offering, of course, a very special price until the end of the year. We want you that joined the dialogue series to be with us. So soon you're going to receive an invitation. And this first dialogue, it's the first of many. As I mentioned before, it's going to be a journey focused on the leaders who subscribe. So feel free, and you will be more than welcome to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to just add and say that Lane, Francine, and our team, Astrid, Malu, and Julia, and Daniel, we've been dreaming and planning that actually this community could become the first global cooperative of entrepreneurs for good. So we are working with lawyers to create the right legal form where each member of the cooperative, 30,000 members, will have one vote and one share. So we're going to get back to you with the with the real launch very soon. So we're very excited because it's very exciting. There is no such thing in the world. And we're not going to be just a network, but actually a cooperative where we work together, and of course, actions, initiatives. We may even start a bank. We will see. So, you know, you will hear from us very soon on that. But I wanted to just take 30 seconds to say big thanks to first Bart Oulahan, Laurence de Bru, Isabelle Grossmaître, Bert van der Son, and then, of course, Francine and Len and Daniel, our wonderful Daniel, and the team behind us for being with us. I think it's been amazing. I see a lot of possible actions coming from this. I just want to thank you for being with us, and it's been fantastic. And over to you, Len.
Yeah, Bet, I saw that you, because we always have space for one small remark at the end. I saw that you were trying to make a remark. Is that correct? Or?
Yeah, I did. I like the idea of a huge corporation of 30,000 members with business leaders that are having their business as a force for good. I'm really happy to hear this, and I hope it will take place, Marcelo.
Yeah, well, it will definitely take place, Bet. No worries about that. And it is the exciting thing is, of course, it is for leaders, from leaders. It's almost the opposite from Facebook, that is only for a very few people to become extremely wealthy using material from all the others in the world. So having said that, we have indeed come to an end. I would like to thank the people from iTeam Global. They own this studio. We can use this studio. It's one of the nicest studios in the country. And I would like to especially thank Frank van der Ven, who's the CEO and founder of iTeam Global. But last and not least, I would like to thank all of you, the leaders who have been involved in this, who came to Rome, who will come to Amsterdam, and you are basically the people who have to change the world. So thank you for joining us. And we end this Leaders Dialogue with an invitation for the next one in January 2023. So for now, be inspired.
Thank
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.